Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Tuesday Times Roundtable. We have wonderful Nathan will introduce him in a little bit. But also, I wanted to take this opportunity. I know that some of you knew Eric, the former program manager for the Office of Global Learning. Well, we have the new Eric, the amazing Jenny, in our team. So I would like to introduce all of you to her, and we'd like to come and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes? Yes. So hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Simon, and as Florencia said, I'm the new program manager for the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. I'm super excited about this role, about working with students and hopefully getting students interested in global learning issues and getting involved in the community, in the university, and beyond. So thank you so much for coming today, and we're super excited about the presentation. And I just wanted to share really quickly, for those global learning medallion students, you know you get 1 point for attending this event. But also, if you're interested in blogging about the event afterwards, I have the guidelines for the blog post. It's very simple. It's your reaction to the event, so don't feel that it's too scary. And I'm happy to provide any guidance. And then with that blog post, we will put it on our website, our social media. So it's a really safe opportunity for you to experiment with writing. So just let me know if you're interested in that. And that'll be all. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And for those Global Learning Medallion students, we'll sign out the points at the end. Also, all of you, just so you know, you have access, since this is hosted by the New York Times, you guys have free access online to New York Times. You can get the information on how to get there on the table up there. Without anything else, I would like to introduce Nathan Presnell. He's currently the Assistant Academic Director of the Global First Year Program, a program designed to assist international students during their first year of study here at Florida International University. Nathan has lived around the United States and the world, including Los Angeles, Buffalo, Northern Virginia, Baltimore, Argentina, Kansas City, and the Miami area. Previous to this time at FIU, he worked as a course coordinator, language curriculum developer, and for 6 years as a language instructor for the beginner and intermediate Spanish courses at the University of Kansas. Nathan has a master's degree in Hispanic literature from the Department of Spanish and Portuguese at the University of Kansas, and he's currently finishing his PhD in second language acquisition and teaching English as a second language from the Department of Curriculum and Instructions at the University of Kansas. His research is focused on language learner use of online machine translation tools such as Google Translate in the university context. Nathan currently resides with his wife Lauren and 2 dogs, Phoebe and Luna, locally in Pembroke Pines. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is this on? There we go. I had warned Josh that I like to wander, so I definitely need this hand mic to be able to be in my hand today. And you always have to finish with the dogs, right? When there's a bio, that's the most important. But I feel really grateful to be here today with you guys. I know that I have a wide variety. I have some students I currently work with in the Global First Year program that are here, and that's awesome. I know I have some people that are here for the points. That's okay. You could be here for the points. And also some people that are interested in the topics. So I'm glad to have everyone here and really grateful for all of your support. So as you can see, we are going to be talking about the influence of language technologies on intercultural communication. It's really funny because this title came about, a lot of you did know Eric Feldman, that was the previous coordinator in global learning. And I was walking by his office one day and he was like, Nate, come over here. And so I came over and he said, Nate, I'm really looking for people to present next year in the Tuesday Times Roundtable. Kind of looked around a little bit. And I knew kind of what he was hinting at. I was like, okay, sure, I'd be happy to talk. This sounds like it would be really fun. And then he was like, cool, what do you think your topic would be? And then I literally just said this off the top of my head. Because it was something that I'd been thinking about. And he was like, I love it. He typed it and he said, how about February 12th? So that's kind of the background of getting here. But I'm really excited to be here with you. And a lot of the things that we're going to discover and kind of talk about today, I know we had a New York Times article that was attached to this. And it's a really, really long article. If you guys took a look at it, it just goes pages and pages and pages. I think when I put it in Word, it was somewhere near 40 pages. So it is a long article. Don't feel like you have to go through everything. I'm going to be pulling some main ideas out of it. Some of you did luck out. I've been telling them, it's like, you know what? I left my big page of notes in my office. So if anything, that might help you. This can be more of a conversation. It'll be a little more fun. But with this, the big things we're going to look at, they're kind of pulling out of that article, and some of the things we're looking at right here are first, what is intercultural communication? I know that's a big tag phrase. All right, you can find like 5 different definitions on Wikipedia or wherever you want to look on what intercultural communication is. We're going to pull out some of the key things. The main thing that we're going to look at, because we're talking about with language technology, specifically Google Translate and how that gets in there, is how do we look at intercultural communication with language learners? And a lot of research has been done with intercultural communication, identity studies, how people self-identify, what happens with that, how their own cultural identity works into how they communicate. And so we're going to be looking at it from that perspective. We're going to be seeing some ideas with technology. We're going to have some fun with Google Translate. So for all of you, if you have your cell phones, this might be the one presentation that we're going to have fun with our cell phones today. All right, so if you have your cell phone with you, a smartphone, go ahead and download the Google Translate app. We're going to be doing some fun things with some of its functionality, exploring just how far it can go. I'm even going to bring a friend up here to have some fun language time with me up here to be able to demonstrate some of it. And then afterwards, some of our big discussion that we're going to be having, and we're also going to want to be doing as far as you guys kind of teaming up in some of your groups out there, is hitting this main question. So really, is communication through language technologies as good as communication directly through the language? Right? Some of you have a gut feeling of no. So you might be like, yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll see. But that's kind of the big thought right here, because that's the big push. And we're going to show, Google had a big Super Bowl ad that we're going to be watching as part of this presentation, where they showed people like drinking boba tea together over Google Translate and all of these things. Really, is it that good? Is it? Can I go meet somebody and drink boba from Google Translate? We'll find out. We'll talk about it. And then also, what are some things that could be lost in Google Translation if we're using an app, or if there's anything else that we get? So jumping into this. Intercultural Communication 1101. This is a shout out to the English department. I know you all had to take English 1101, right? So here, we're going to do Intercultural Communication 1101, baseline. We're not going to dive too deep. If I have any experts in the room that would like to add anything, feel free. But really my thought is to get us more so we can get to the fun part a little bit faster. So if we're looking at intercultural communication, a big definition of it is you're looking at, it studies communication across different cultures and social groups, or how culture affects communication. Okay, so when they're also looking at the actual studies in it, how do different cultures interact when they're communicating? Okay, that's what we're talking about with this. So a big portion of this, and I do not claim to be an expert in identity studies or anything like that. I took a couple classes. That's about my connection to it, but I think it's really big coming into as we're talking about technology. So if we're thinking about who we are, all right? Thinking about all of us as we're thinking of how we self-identify, okay, culturally, personally, however it may be. Lacan said there is no separation between self and society, all right? And in the same way, he talked about a lot of our own identity that we create is through our language, how we represent ourselves, how we present ourselves. And he said there is no subject, or in that way he was speaking about individuals as subjects, independent of language, okay? And in the same way of thinking about ourselves, sociocultural context cannot be an overarching, unidimensional idea. So, quick question. When you think about yourself, can you sum yourself up in one word? Anybody? Yeah, for yourself. What's your name? Tatiana, nice to meet you. Tatiana, would it be really easy to describe everything about yourself, everything that you do, everything that you study, everything you care about, in one idea, one word? No, it'd be crazy difficult, right? So as we think about ourselves and what we're communicating, what we're doing, it isn't necessarily something that we can just express as one thing. We are all multifaceted. right? We may have religious beliefs that take us in one direction, that guide some things we do, things that we care about in our work, our family, right? So with this, it's kind of a big thought as we're going into this, that we can't just sum ourselves up as one thing. And even as there might be something that you'd present as yourself to one person to another, that isn't all you, right? You don't know everything about me just because I'm standing up here. You're like, oh, he's wearing a goofy tie. Okay. But that doesn't tell you everything about me. So another thing that we're going, so we're thinking about identity, okay? So we're all multifaceted, right? There's a phrase that a friend of mine uses, they call people special snowflakes, right? I love that phrase because we are all really that unique. You all really have those different pieces to us. So then if you're thinking about this multifaceted self and, okay, how are we going to communicate? How are we going to engage with other people? That's when they bring in something, and this is the ending, almost the academic portion we'll talk about of this, an investment. So an investment, Norton Pierce talked about it as being the way of how the language learner, so if we're talking about Google Translate, some of these apps, you're probably using it because you have some kind of lack of language in another language, whether it's you don't speak Chinese or you don't speak Turkish or whatever it may be. So in a way, you are kind of a language learner, right? You're trying to communicate and understand something in a changed social world. So then as it's thinking about this, we have our complex social identity, we have multiple desires, and that we're trying to speak, right? We're not only trying to speak with someone else, but we're also negotiating our environment, right? Right now, when I'm speaking to you, I'm not just speaking to like, okay, I'm speaking to a group of people. I have to think I'm speaking in the Tuesday Times Roundtable. They better learn something. This better be interesting. They have to listen to me for almost an hour. That's a long time, right? So there's a lot of things I have to take into account with this. And so they say when people are communicating, right, so we're pulling main things out of this, that you're not just trying to communicate an idea, you're doing something that's called negotiation of meaning. So I have that picture up in the corner. And I kind of liked it because it's a whole bunch of people spitting out gobbledygook, right? You look, there are number signs, there are question marks, there are letters, there are numbers. A whole time whenever you're interacting with someone, you're trying to figure out what each other are saying, right? Even if it's as simple as hello, how are you? You're trying to understand each other, okay? And at the same time that you're doing that, you're also, your own identity, your own self is transforming as you're communicating with that person and what you're trying to present. So when they're talking about this, they're saying, okay, lots of times in social interaction, we're doing more than just communicating who we are, all right? So when we're jumping into this, okay, kind of get this into a little bit of the last portion of what we're going to be doing as far as the main academic before we start making this a little bit more fun, is so then as they're talking about agency, you're thinking of that's the power to be able to communicate. All right, so if we're thinking about language technologies, we're thinking about Google Translate, and where really the buy-in with Google Translate is, it'll be like, hey, now you can communicate with anyone in any language, right? We have all of these different languages. You have all of this power to now be able to communicate, right? But when we think about how they talk about communication in real life, when we're talking about people that are language learners or people that are coming into a situation, you need to have that power to be able to speak. You have that space to be able to speak. So a lot of ways when they talk about this, when they speak about language learners, that without any kind of technology assistance or anything, they're coming into a situation, they are trying, like, the ability to act, the ability to speak a language, the ability to communicate, then gives you rights to that culture. It gives you rights to what you can learn in that culture. And in that same time that you're trying to do that, they do talk about how in many times agency or the power to communicate can be restricted. And so in this kind of situation, talking about how this would normally happen, they say lots of times many individuals compare their own social groups to outgroups to make their own better or to make their own more special or more distinct. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so with that, in lots of times we'll see that within a society. Can any of you guys think of any situations that you've ever seen? It could be as simple as a children's birthday party or anything where you came across a situation where you saw that someone did not seem to be given the space to speak, whether it's they didn't speak the language well, they were kind of an outcast, they seemed awkward. Have any of you seen that kind of a situation? Jorennis, I see you nodding. Do you mind sharing if you had that kind of a situation, even if it was a simple thing? What was that situation? Okay, cool. How do those other family members feel when you're doing that?
Left out.
Okay.
You're not in on the joke or whatever's going on in the situation.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you think about everyday situations like that, right, where you have a situation of, for the camera, in case it didn't catch, so she had spoken about her family. Next time I'll hand the microphone off. They had a family that spoke English and Spanish, okay? And some of them speak both, and some of her family members only speak Spanish. And that there are times when those who speak English would speak only English, and then the other side of the family would not understand what's going on. They wouldn't be able to enjoy the joke or know the moment or see what was happening. So with this, that's kind of something that usually we wanted to bring out and show is that lots of times this is what happens to language learners, right? They come into a situation, they try to communicate, right? They can't communicate or they don't know the language and they either miss something, they're left out, they can't fully participate. I had a fun story because I had mentioned I lived in Argentina. The first time I went to buy razors. So I went to try to get razors to shave my face, okay? And so I went to a tienda and I was trying to go see if I could buy some razors. And so I went up to the kiosco and I was talking with the guy and I was trying to tell him that I needed razors. And I didn't speak a lick of Spanish at that point, or Castellano for you. There, call it Castellano for you. So then, so with that, I didn't speak a lick of the language. And I was trying to figure out what to do with the razors. And he spoke limited English. And between the two of us, we were trying to figure out. And in the end, I felt so proud of myself because I bought razors. I got back to my apartment, really proud, and announced to my roommate, I bought razors. So proud of myself. I could shave, no more beard, right? So cool, what power, all right? And then my roommate asked me, how much did you spend on that? How much did you pay? I found out that I paid the equivalent of $50, like if you're thinking transferable, for my razors. And he proceeded to laugh at me for like the next hour. Right? Those are the kind of situations you're thinking if you're a language learner and you're going into somewhere else that you experience as you're trying to negotiate with that culture. So another case study, and this is a little bit of a stronger kind of situation, is that when you're looking at then a lot of those times, then I needed to figure out, okay, how am I going to now assert my power? How am I going to assert my identity in this kind of situation? And so you can figure out what kinds of identity options you're going to use. But it's hard for a language learner because you have a lot of different pieces of yourself. What is it that you're going to use to be able to actually communicate, to actually be able to have some power? So in this right here, this is a case study that Norton did where she was speaking about a Canadian immigrant from Czechoslovakia named Martina. Now Martina was in her 40s. She had multiple children. She was a geologist back in Czechoslovakia, okay, had her degree. She had all of this kind of knowledge and everything, but she did not speak English at all. And then when she arrived in Canada, she ended up working in a fast food restaurant because the only job that she could find where they would take her without having English proficiency. She tried to communicate, regularly didn't get good shifts, couldn't do anything. And she kept trying to put herself out as a geologist. And they wouldn't accept it. But then in this case study, what was interesting is we're thinking about our multiple selves, all the different things about us. The way she finally got to be able to start learning the language was through her kids. She was a mom. So she used her identity as a mom to start asking her kids, what does this word mean? What is this? What is that? Okay? And as she started learning the language through interacting with her kids, through doing all of these situations, she went back to work the next day. And the workers that usually wouldn't listen to her were slacking off, busted out in English, and told them to stop slacking off. And that they needed to finally get in gear. You guys need to do your job. I'm paying you. You need to go to work. And then ended up doing that. And later on, the author had commented that then through there, she started finding economic mobility. So I think the whole point of just talking about this, when we're talking about communication, we're talking about who we are, if we're going into a situation where we don't know a language, the big thing I want to point out is that we can't just point out one aspect of ourselves, that communication isn't just words, right? You can't just say, okay, I know the language, I have a dictionary here, right? There's a lot of different pieces to it. And that lots of times as language learners are trying to communicate, you can't show necessarily your full self. So as we're jumping forward a little bit, something that was right here is that they've called a community of practice. So Wenger up there, I have a quote. I won't read the whole thing, but it's basically telling you about a group with a common purpose, okay, being called a community of practice. How many of you guys have had to work together in a lab, or you've had to work together in a class, or anything like that with people that you don't know and they are not your friends? Okay, everyone. That's your favorite thing to do, right? Is there somebody that's brave enough to be put on the spot for a moment? I'll give you the microphone and everything so that Josh can pick you up and everything. To be able to say kind of how it feels when you're working in that group. Like, what is it that actually keeps the group going? Because you're not friends and everything. Is there someone who'd like to comment? Yeah? Oh, Idara. Awesome. Thank you.
Common goal. The only thing that like keeps you guys working together.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you use that common goal to function?
Focus on it, so you're not really focusing on like the fact that you're not friends or you don't know each other. You're just focusing on like the task that you have to do.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you, Idara. I put you right on the spot there. I appreciate that. So with that, that's the whole idea of this, that if you have a common goal, or if there is a goal, that you can then use that space as kind of a way to be like, okay, look, we're not friends, we don't connect on all of these things, but we can connect through this, right? It's finding that one thing that you can use to communicate and move forward. So in the same way as we're now going to start talking about Google Translate a little bit, they've talked about that in a digital format, okay? Is that a big thing that they found is that a lot of people, as they're learning languages, they're able to show different parts of themselves through digital means. So there may be things you can show pictorially, or maybe things you can discuss that you couldn't necessarily say in person. So when I put there Dusty, that was a study by Hall in 2006. So in this study, he spoke about an immigrant population that was basically an at-risk population because a lot of these students couldn't communicate in English, okay? And in this situation, there was one particular girl whose teachers, they were like, she doesn't communicate, she doesn't try, she doesn't put herself out there. We're really concerned about her future. We don't know what she's going to do, okay? And then they brought her into this program called Dusty that was all using video and computers and creating presentations. And they said that when she entered that program, when she got in front of the computer, she changed. She wasn't the quiet person in her room. She was all of a sudden this really outgoing person. And they went and spoke to the teachers being like, guess what? This is the best person in our program. And they were like, how? She doesn't speak. And when they showed this presentation, they were able to see a whole new way of that this person was. Do I have any gamers in here? Any gamers? Anybody that plays any kind of video games? No? Yeah? Yeah? Do you have an online name? Yeah? Okay, you don't have to say it. But how do you portray yourself when you're online? Is it different than how you are in your normal day-to-day?
Well, in some ways, I mean, I could say that in some ways, yes, just because, I mean, I have a pretty, like, my personality is pretty just laid back and relaxed. So it really just translates to the gaming side too. But I think that what it is, though, is that it gives you an opportunity to, like, meet other people, like, in a virtual, I guess, environment where you can find others that are like you, and then, like, you can just, or find other people that you find interesting, and then you play, like, you know, rounds or whatever the game is involved. And it's just, when you're in a virtual setting, it's your personality changes either a little bit, or there's, like, people that stream professionally that have, like, this whole persona built up, like, but for me, for the most part, it's the same.
Okay, cool, thank you. I found that was really interesting, though, that you said that was a good place to meet people and, like, interact. Are these people that, and you were able to find, hey, we have this common interest. Do you think you guys would have met otherwise, or that you'd be talking otherwise, probably? You got some great comments. I want everybody to hear them. I want everybody to get that.
Sometimes, like, what I've noticed is that, like, especially in games where it's like a team-based type of mechanics for the game, you'll notice how some people from a region that you're playing with are very organized and strategic about the way they play the game. then you'll notice somebody else that you get paired up in a team where there's multiple regions, and it's like there's a little bit of chaos, but like, you can all kind of at the same point like figure out a way to be like, all right, let's just stick together and we'll just go with that plan. But in other teams, you'll see them talking about go to point A, go to point B, and they'll all have like this little lingo, and it's like it's interesting to see.
Thank you. That's really awesome. I don't know if you could have said anything more perfect, because that's really cool. Because so you said you've met people from Saudi Arabia, from everywhere, and interesting you said then that you're then working on that goal, but you might have some differences regionally about how you do it. That's really interesting. But the game is like your mode of communication. That's your space. That's awesome. So if you couldn't hear me, I was saying, and also the games facilitate ways that as you're trying to reach these objectives, then you'll have actions that you can give or commands that they'll either translate or people understand by what you're putting in. That's really interesting. That is an amazing transition. I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. What's your name? Thank you, Ulysses. I really appreciate it. As a fellow gamer, I very much appreciate you giving that perspective. So with that, it's really interesting, because then you're seeing in this space you have people with all of these different language capabilities, right, from all of these different places, common goal with you're going to win that game, whether you're playing Call of Duty, whatever you're doing, but you're in that space, and then they're finding a way to communicate. So let's move to Google Translate. Okay, so we've been talking about then there are all of these multifaceted parts of our personality, right? There are all these multifaceted parts of our identity and everything, but we find something that connects, whether it's a game, right? Whether it's a project, right? You're all trying to complete. So how is Google Translate any different than from of those third spaces? I'm trying to problematize some things for you guys, because I loved that when I first came in, I proposed the question, I saw some people looking and saying, no. Google Translate can't be communication. And I'll tell you my real perspective at the end too, but I don't want to change any of yours. But with this, I want to at least problematize a little bit that you see that there are means that we communicate all the time, and there are means that we do things all the time that are mediated by a third kind of space. So this one I did for all of our chem people that I have to take chemistry 1045, right? So this will be Google Translate 1045, all right? Fun intro class. All right, so mini background on Google Translate. So it started out as a statistics-based translation system, okay, meaning that it would look online for translations already done by human translators, make comparisons, and that's how it, quote unquote, learned how to do translations. It is looked from comparisons of humans. Okay. After 2009, it started changing away from this idea of we're just going to look at online on comparisons, and we're going to start sourcing information directly from humans. So I don't know, any of you guys that use Google Translate, did you ever see for a while they had like a button there that it was like, would you translate this differently? Yeah? Did you see that? Did you ever click it? Oh, so you fed into the community. Yeah, what was your name? Kelly, thank you. I appreciate you participating. Yeah, it's interesting, right? That Google Translate was like, how about this? But it's like, but would you do it differently? Right? And in a way, for a while, Google kind of crowdsourced this, right? Where they were able to they had a Google community. And for a while, they also had what was called a translator's toolkit and this was all cited back to Van Redsburg, that they had a Google toolkit that translators could actually provide Google help and helping their translation system to be able to do better. So with this whole kind of system, by a 2015 study, so in a lot of the Romance languages, such as French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, they were reaching about 80% accuracy, okay? And you can think, okay, 80% accuracy, what is that? Well, we'll just say if the translation is understandable 80% of the time, right? Then it was always weaker in languages such as German, Chinese, Afrikaans in South Africa, Arabic, Hindi, languages where there weren't a lot of things in the same, if you say like the same paper in more than one language. It looked a lot at documents from the United Nations. Okay, so that's where it sourced a lot of its language. So then, but we'll think that even with all of that, it was still able to reach that level. When they did studies in medicine, a hospital used it in place of human translators for a while. All right, right after 2010. And when they did that, I can't remember the exact name of the citation author, but when they did, they said it was about 57% accurate, okay? And they asked them, so would you use this? in place of a real human translator forever. And they're like, well, not if somebody needs like surgery or it's really crazy, but if we want to ask them how they are, okay. Was basically where they landed with it. And by 2014, Google Translate had a traffic flow of 1 billion translations per day. So kind of crazy. So this is, if we think, old Google Translate. Okay. Some of the things that you guys then saw in the article was post-2016, it switched to an AI-based translation system. So if you guys read in that article, there are pages and pages and pages and pages that talk about Google Brain, right? And all of the work that they've done to create artificial intelligence and to then work into creating the system that learns. There's a quote from the article that I thought was really cool because it talked about how then it was like, from now on, it's then going to be that Google is not going to be from human learning, but from machine learning, right? That they're looking more towards the machine learning aspect. So when we're looking into this now, so then what they said in the actual article that I thought was really cool when they did tests was that improvements when they transitioned from statistics-based to AI-based overnight was equal to almost all of the improvement they had made since the existence of the beginning of the system, just by switching to their AI, okay? And so with English and French, for example, this was where I have my notes, but I do remember what it was. So you can read more about this in the actual article. So what they were talking about was that the system learns by seeing the difference between words as far as code. So the system recognized the difference between king and queen, linguistically and by code, is the same difference as between man and woman, linguistically. So the system would start picking up on things like that. And they said that in English and French, it had basically done on the scale of how they rate basically the effectiveness of translation systems. They said, don't use English and French. Those are some of the best. And when they did it, it shot way past their expectations. So even in systems where it was already good, it got that much better. So with that kind of a background, now we're going to get to an interesting thing. How Google's marketing itself now. How many people watched the Super Bowl? Yes? Did you guys see the Google ads that were on during the Super Bowl? All right, if you didn't, you are going to watch one right now, okay, called 100 Billion Words. All right, maybe draw a tear. Google gets very heartwarming in this Super Bowl ad. I warn you. Okay, they have some touching music. But with this, it's interesting because it's showing this is how Google is now presenting itself with all of these technological advancements.
Hey Google.
More than 100 billion words are translated every day.
Lift your hand.
Thank you very much for your help.
ご助力ありがとうございます。
Words about food, words about friendship, about sport, about belief, about fear.
Oh my God!
Words that can hurt and sometimes divide. But every day, the most translated words in the world are how are you? Thank you. And I love you.
After that Grammy-winning performance by Google. No. So as you can see, Google is now trying to market it a little bit differently, itself a little bit differently, right? They're now presenting themselves as this company that can now bridge all of these barriers, right? You guys were shaking your heads at the beginning. No. Google Translate, it can't bridge that barrier. There's no way. You were emphatically shaking your head no. Jenny was like, no way. Mm-mm. No. It can't, right? But Google says it can. It says it can, right? They talked about it. Religious, cultural barriers, we talked about. All the different parts of ourselves, right? But they're saying we can bridge that. So let's see. Everybody that has your phone, pop it out. Let's see. Let's put Google to the test. Google says it is awesome. It says it can do all of these things. So the first thing that I'm going to do, okay, is I am going to bring this up so that we can get to a signal where I can show you what it looks like. So on your actual thing, on your main page, oh, I didn't have the main page. I'm sorry about that. But what you'll see is when you open up your Google Translate app, okay, there's a camera button. You see, everybody see the camera button? Okay, so everybody on the camera button, go ahead and push that. Everybody look and see, and I should have actually mentioned this earlier, see if you have Japanese, okay? You can select the language, make sure you have English there, go ahead and select Japanese. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys a sign in Japanese, and we're going to look at its camera function, okay? Does everybody have Japanese set? Yeah? All right, I'll give you guys a few more seconds to get it set if you'd like. So basically, so you know what you'll do, just like you're taking a picture, you're gonna hold the phone up, pointing it at the screen. Hopefully you have a good angle to be able to do it. Hold it up at the screen, and Google is going to translate a sign for you. Okay, you can ooh and ah if you want. The first time I saw it, I almost fell out of my chair. But I'm also an academic nerd, so that might be why too. All right, go ahead and hold it up. Yeah, so well, what I'm going to show you, since I'm sorry it didn't quite work, was that this is what my phone did. Okay, so it's really interesting. It does superimpose right over it, but do you understand what's going on there? Do you understand what you probably shouldn't do there? Is it that good? No, it's kind of ugly, right? And so I did on purpose at first, like a language that Google already had said like isn't one of its best, right? You're jumping between English and Japanese is probably a little bit difficult. It might have been because I was showing it at a screen, whatever it may be, okay? But you pretty much get, okay, I shouldn't throw stuff away right here, okay? It gives you that idea. So let's go to Spanish. I think this sign might be a little bit clearer. I'm going to turn the lights off again. See if you can zoom and get any kind of closer. They also have the assistance anywhere here if that helps, okay? But I'm going to bring up a Spanish sign because Spanish is supposed to be really good, right? With them, it's supposed to be great. So let's give this a shot. Are some of you guys seeing some word changes? If you click Spanish there. Anyone? Any of you getting some changes? Yeah, Darian? Yeah, you're nodding. Ooh, don't fall out of your chair now. Yeah, so it is really cool. You literally watch the language change in front of you in like the exact same font and everything. So you can think about like if you were in another country, if you were doing something and you didn't speak that language, that could be pretty useful. This is what my phone put out. This is a screenshot. All right, so, I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, it's pretty close. I mean, I'm figuring as far as even word recognition of what it's seeing, it's pretty close. But I guess you'd want to make sure you don't go to the danger. That might be the only bad thing. Go to the danger right here. But you can pretty much see that there's going to be something horrific if you're within 3 feet of that thing, right? Okay, so that's our English-Spanish for fun. All right, so that's what you get out of your camera. So they showed the person that was in the commercial was showing and was like, ooh, look, I understand everything in Thailand. I think that's where it looks like they were maybe when they held up their phone there. So let's see another thing. So I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this first, with myself. And then I'm going to bring up one of my friends, Sasha, that speaks Italian. She's already agreed to do this, thankfully. And we're going to see how this works. It might not go that well over the actual camera, so I'm sorry about that for those that watch later. But give you an idea of what happens here. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in between Spanish and English, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Their conversation is the third button over, okay, if you guys ever wanted to use this for yourselves. So you can see on that time, my microphone was on the whole time. And so basically their idea is you hold it out, you have two people speaking two different languages. Of course, I tried to speak extra clear, right? And it was going to then try to figure out, okay, let's see if we can get them to communicate. So now I'm going to bring Sasha down. We're going to try in between Spanish and Italian. Let's see what happens, okay? So that you know what our goal is. I know a lot of you speak Spanish, and so you'll understand my side. If you don't speak Italian, you might understand most of what she's saying. My goal is to get her to see the Lego movie. Okay, you can see, save time. Yay, Google. All right. So from what you guys saw there, I'll get the microphone back on. I don't know how well you could hear. But you could see that there were times where it kind of worked, right? Kind of not. All right. And then in a way, I kind of got to almost getting to the thing. I think if we had a couple more minutes, we might have been able to finally get to Sasha going to the Lego movie on that weekend, right? But as you see, it kind of had that. And we had previously said, like, what do we do if it doesn't work? And let's do what you really do in a real situation. ¿Cómo? Or like, what are you going to say? Like, what are you saying? Like, because you wouldn't actually see what's going on. So right here, we've kind of had a little bit of fun in both of these. And so you'll know when you're actually doing the conversation, it'll light up both languages and it'll listen for both languages and try to see. And it will distinguish who's speaking what. When I spoke Spanish, it did know I was speaking Spanish. When Sasha spoke Italian, it did know that she was speaking Italian. So that's pretty impressive. And it just kind of, you could literally lay it on a table. So right now they have launched this. They say I have 180 languages, I believe. Don't quote me on that because I believe that's the number I saw. It goes up as far as what they've put in this functionality. Right? On the actual app, you can go through and scroll, and there's just a huge list that you can download. It's 180 languages, I believe, on the main computer. If you wanted to do written, I'm not sure about the spoken. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, that's a good question because you're thinking about like, where can I go then with this? So this is kind of where I want you guys to talk a little bit. All right, I'll give you guys a few minutes to be able to talk with somebody near you. So groups of 4, try to get through as many of these as you can. Okay, I know we had a long academic portion, so it broke into this a little bit. But what do you guys think? 6 questions. Does Google Translate communicate as well as people? To is the same message communicated, whether it's Google Translate or directly from someone that speaks the language? Like, do you get the tone, the meaning, right? Could Sasha have understood that I really felt bad that she was tired, right? Just through what the Google Translate was saying. Is there anything missing? Do you still think there's value of learning a language and interacting with someone in another language if we have this technology? And then what do you think? Is this a great space to do it? Should we communicate this way? Okay. So in little groups, I want to see what you guys think. Okay. Break off for a few minutes and talk this over. I want to start trying to get a group consensus on this. Okay. Let's reel it in. We can at least cover some of the main questions here. I was going to do a Kahoot, but we actually, I think just for time and the amount of people that we have, it's okay. We'll stay away from trying to load up the Kahoot, unless you really want to Kahoot it. Let's see what people think. Okay. All right. You guys have Kahoot quickly on your phone, right? Kahoot.it. Oh, my team. So then, Kahoot.it, and I'll bring up the Kahoot for you guys. That will be fun. Let's play it. Why not? So let's bring it over. All right, there we go. All right, so let's bring this up. So people that have Kahoot, it'll bring up the number here, the really corny music in a moment. Yes, Kahoot music. Okay, so there's your number. Please no inappropriate names. It could just be a number, an initial. Nicknames beware. Watch out. All right. Do I have anybody else that's trying to log in? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start it so that we can move forward without you guys missing any of your class time. All right, here come the 2 questions. They're the main questions that we have today. All right, so does Google Translate communicate as well as people? Yes, no, or I really can't decide. All right, 5 seconds left. Okay, what do people think? No! Wow, That is overwhelming. That is overwhelming. As a former language teacher, that does kind of make me happy because then I have a job. But that's very interesting. Okay, so now what I was going to actually be going into is why not? Why don't you guys think why not? Ooh, okay, Kelly has something up there. It's Kelly, right? Yeah. All right, good. I remembered. Yay.
I certainly think that it tries to. I mean, it's better than nothing, but I feel like a lot of things, especially like emotion behind like the words that you're saying, gets lost in the translation, and also like you might say something, but like how earlier you were talking about the thing was like, would you have translated this differently? You could have meant something else.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't know anything in that language. Yeah, you saw one of those moments when I was speaking to Sasha, right? She gave a really big like, what? Because it was like nothing, right? What if they really thought you meant that? Anybody else? Opinion on why no? Yeah.
When it comes to informal and formal speech as well, it's not the same.
So the tone and all those kinds of things is a lot different. Yeah, that's very true. That's interesting. So yeah, you can't be more formal like if you want to be like, sir, or anything like that. Oh, perfect. So you couldn't say like, yes, sir, and really elevate it if you wanted. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And you could even catch when I was trying to really communicate sorrow with Sasha, unless she really read like westernized kind of motions of emotion, she would have been like, what's he trying to tell me? Is he sorry, or I can't really tell, or is he just communicating? All right, good job. Yeah.
Hi.
What was your name? I'm sorry.
Tatiana.
Tatiana. Cool. Nice to meet you, Tatiana.
So what I was discussing with Kelly was that maybe some people that learn like second languages and they try to use the second languages with like another language that they don't speak at all. So I went into that. So maybe they don't use the proper verbs or tenses, and then the translation won't be accurate because they're trying their best, but it's not the accurate translation.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm not a native Spanish speaker, so speaking to Sasha in Spanish, if I was like, maybe that'll help, or something, and use it as a source language, if I made a mistake, you're right. Yeah, very true. So, okay, next question for everybody, and I'll let you stay with the mic in case, so we'll have some input on this one. All right, next one, back to the jams here. Can Google Translate replace learning a language? Wow, that's the fastest I've ever seen on a Kahoot quiz with answers. One person still undecided. Or they left. Oh, all right, here we go. There were a couple that really can't decide. Overwhelmingly, no, but a couple that couldn't decide. And that's what I was hoping. I was hoping to problematize it a little bit for a couple of you. One person that really couldn't decide, would you mind sharing why? And that's totally fine that you couldn't decide or you're like, I don't know, it's difficult. No? Yeah? Go for it.
I kind of ended up saying no, even though I did feel that I couldn't decide. But the main reason why I said no is because I don't really foresee it like replacing learning a language, and at least not in the foreseeable future. Because while AI-based learning, like what they've gone for right now, it's still in like its baby, like it's like still in its very early development stages. So, I mean, me personally, like at my job, I work with systems and I work with like coding and stuff. So I know the limitations that can come from like beta programs or from things, and especially when you're dealing with something like AI, until you can factor in like exactly what everybody was mentioning earlier about like the emotional tones, the past tenses, the differences in languages like that are structurally different. Like in English, where we focus on the past tense, the future tense, and then if you communicate, we were actually talking right now when it was the team breakdown that it was. I have a friend who's Chinese, and AI won't be able, or at least not effectively be able to communicate my future and past tenses over to a Chinese language where there is no future tenses, no past, and
true.
There's like barriers like that AI would have to try to find a way to overcome, and I don't see that happening like too soon anyways. So.
All right, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, I believe in the article it was about a year and a half old, the article, but they had talked about how it was kind of literally in the stages of a young child, right? And it was, you were kind of talking about developmentally. So that's really interesting. Actually, yeah, I'll grab that back. So with those, I think that was kind of where we were trying to see with you guys, show you some of where the limitations are, what is really going on, and I'm glad that you guys have saw a lot of the things that I was aiming over towards. Bring my presentation back here, if the Kahoot will exit, see which way this cursor goes. Oh, there we go. So bringing this back up. So I think that's really true, a lot of the things that you guys were saying, where you were like, there are some things, right, where basically it won't be able to communicate everything that you want, right? But where some of you are like, maybe informally it would be okay. Even when you said no, a couple of you gave some concessions, right? My sister went to China and she arrived somewhere 2 hours away using purely the new Google Translate app, right? It can function in certain situations. She said there were a lot of times, like when I was talking with Sasha, that they looked at her very confused, but it worked. It got there. So if you're thinking of a point A to point B, maybe. So that's kind of saying with my own thoughts is I'm kind of with you on that. And it's not where my own research right now is looking into it in a language classroom using Google Translate. Is it a tool you can use to maybe help bridge some gaps, to maybe learn more vocabulary, things like that? I think it does have its place, but it's kind of interesting. It gets a little problematic. I wanted to see, were there any questions? I know we're kind of at the time, and I don't know how much time we would have, but if any of you need to filter out or anything, but I did want to stick around if there were any questions or any thoughts or anything anybody wanted to share. Yeah?
I just wanted to share an experience super quick. In China, I went for study abroad, and I'm vegetarian. And the school before we left, provided me with a little sign that it was supposed to say that I was vegetarian. And once I got there and I started showing people that, they were like, no, what is that? So I had a really, really hard time trying to tell people that I was vegetarian. We didn't have a phone back then, like internet on the phone for me to use Google Translate. So the resulting what ended up happening is that I ended up losing 7 pounds because I would eat, but I would eat only like if I see a Pizza Hut or something and stuff like that. So and then another time we got lost in Shanghai, and the university was like an hour away, and we didn't have access to internet in our phones. So I'm thinking on times like that, even if it's not the same as a human interconnection, having a resource like that would certainly help, definitely in both situations. So I think it's a tremendous, useful tool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you. And I think I have to agree there. I mean, you can't deny that it was really cool when you saw the words first transform on your phone when you're holding up to a sign, or you see that. At least for me, it's still cool. It's one of the things where you're like, wow, it can do that. Or you can hold a conversation, even if it is something as light as that. And I think that's kind of where it's at least getting more to a gray area. And that's kind of where I wanted to bring it in for today. Not to end in a gray area. Ooh, is this a first in Tuesday Times Roundtable? We're ending in a gray area. But as far as where academics were saying years ago, a lot of language researchers were just saying, no, Google Translate's the devil. It's going to destroy our field. There's no use for it. It's horrible, blah. And we're freaking out. And in my own research, just finding plethora of articles all saying those kinds of things. I think now with how it's coming, we're starting to see there might be uses. There might be ways that a language learner could use it. If you know part of the language, but you only need a little bit, it could be perfect. Right? Even if you can't communicate deep ideas about religion or many aspects of yourself. So I like this. Some of you guys were like, okay, yeah, I can't communicate everything as it might be, but I kind of wanted to leave that there, that this might be something to be keeping our eyes on in the near future. Within a few years, we may be at Star Trek where we have the little thing we put on our mouths and it translates us into Klingon, right? You never know. You never know. But thank you very much, you guys. It was so wonderful to be here today. If you have any questions, I'll stay up here for a little bit. Thank you.
Bye.